All right, here we go. As I said, this is not ideal to do a video lecture for a conversation class. Nonetheless, uh, because we had so many holidays, both on Monday and Friday, this is going to be the only way to get all our presentations done and cover the topics that are remaining as well. So I'm going to post a clip, probably. I talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Superstition and luck and bad luck is chapter 6. We sort of touched on that, so I'm going to leave that out, and we're just going to focus on the last 3 topics. As I explained to you in class, there are 10 questions on the exam, 10 possible questions, excuse me. 3 from the first 5 topics and 3 from the second 5. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you've got to do 2 out of those. And don't forget how to answer your questions from the midterm, because it might be the same question that you answered on the midterm, but that doesn't matter. It's all random. So just do your best. The same sort of criteria stands. 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes per answer. Be organized. Use good grammar and vocabulary. Stay on topic. All the things that I taught you this semester, they all apply for the exam. So since we have so many presentations and we do have another holiday next week, it's just Holiday City this semester. This is the only way we're going to do it, is to talk about these topics. I imagine it shouldn't take much more than 30 minutes, but who knows? Chapter 8 is about memorable experiences. I was an English major and attempted to do a double major in psychology, but I was a couple credits short. But I have I've taken a lot of psychology classes, and the way our memory works is we remember things that help us survive. Our brain is very closely connected to this idea of survival, and as a result, we have this expression. You make a choice whether you're going to fight the danger or run away. I think the more common thing is to run away. It's safer, but in many cases, the choice is made that fighting might be the better answer. That's very complicated. We won't get into that too much, but regardless, memorable experiences normally involve extreme emotions of whatever type, especially shocking, negative, traumatic emotions tend to leave a stronger imprint. That's probably also as a result of the fact that if you do something really dangerous and you almost die, your brain says, let's remember that and not do it again. Case in point, I can remember some of the clearest memories I have are injuries, mostly from sports, sometimes from accidents, but if you were ever in an ambulance and you were really sick, you might have sort of even if you were young, you might have this sort of not clear memory, but a flash of information about what happened. So the easiest way to answer this type of question, obviously, is to talk about a memory of your own. In the textbook, they talk about somebody swimming or falling off a bridge, and I did have a student that did answer the question about swimming, because when he was young, he was a very strong, this is 12 years ago or so, But when he was young, he was a really strong swimmer, very confident, learned to swim very well in a swimming pool. And one time he was up in a mountain in Korea and jumped into the river, and it was ice cold, and his muscles froze up, and he just couldn't, his muscles just seized up, so he couldn't swim. And so he started to sink. His uncle jumped in, pulled him out of the river, and had to pump the water out of his lungs, and he survived, and he never went swimming again. So that was a childhood memory, but I mean, there's a lot of distance between that memory and the interview where he explained what happened. So don't choose something that's very upsetting or traumatic or makes you angry, frustrated, sad, right? If it's happened really recently, I've had students say something like, last week I broke up with my girlfriend or boyfriend, as the case may be, and they can barely get through the answer because they're still getting over the breakup. I can talk about my ex-girlfriend from 15 years ago or 20 years ago, and there's a small sort of bit of sadness deep inside me, but I'm not going to burst out crying in the middle of the story. More likely I'm going to laugh and say, oh, she was never a good match for me anyway, and why did I date her in the first place? So the memory can be funny, it can be tragic, it can be, I've told you already, I snapped my Achilles tendon. First, we're coming up on 16 years that I've been here. So 16 years ago, in June, I ruptured my Achilles tendon, and I couldn't walk for 6 months. And I'll never forget that summer. I also was 28 years old, so it's easy to remember something when you're that old. So the easiest way to answer this question is to think back to something that happened. Just don't choose something that makes you too emotional, because that's going to prevent you from being effective at being organized and remembering perhaps the right words and stuff. So maybe choose something, a surprise, something shocking but positive. You know what I mean? I don't know. A favorite sort of present or gesture that somebody in our writing class, we talked about gifts, and I told the story about how whenever when Christmas or my birthday rolls around, I never ask for anything. I just ask my family to surprise me, which sometimes annoys them, because just giving some cash would be much simpler. But I find it more exciting, and all the most memorable gifts I've gotten were the most surprising ones. Some of the most disappointing ones were also memorable. I remember in high school, my mother gave me a blanket, a very expensive French blanket called a duvet, which turned out to be my favorite blanket ever. But I just remember being like, when I was young, I used to get toys and bicycles and whatever for Christmas. Entertaining things. A blanket's not really, it's just comfortable. It's not an entertaining thing. So I remember being 14 or 15 and being like, this is the worst Christmas present ever. But I took that thing, I had that thing for 10 years. I took it to university, and it was the most comfortable blanket in summer or winter. Didn't matter. It was breathable. It was warm. It was a dark purple, and it had a sort of sheet on the outside, and it was a big fluffy, stuffed blanket, and now it's one of my favorites, and I remember it as being disappointing, but in retrospect, my parents knew that I think they knew that was something I needed when I was going away to university, and yeah, I loved that thing. I wonder where it went. It's probably in recycling heaven. So as you go through chapter 8, there's a whole bunch of things. I prefer you to talk about personal memories. I know you're young, but try and think about memories. It can be recent-ish, like last year or something, but not yesterday and not this semester. Go back. You don't have to go right back into your childhood, but go back, a few years, or at least a year, into when you're not in university, and think of something important that happened to you, and describe it and tell me why you remember it. Okay? Whatever, if it's emotionally charged or whatever that is. Excuse me. I continue to suffer from my allergies, but better than before. So, read through that chapter and find whatever you think is useful for your answer. There's no homework for these things, so it's up to you to come up with, a plan for your interview question yourself. Chapter 9 is about chocolate. I'm not a huge chocolate person, but I'm well aware of what we call addictions. And there's a similar word called obsessions, and I want to distinguish between the two of them because addictions are really... Obsessions means you can't stop thinking about something, but addictions push you even further. Like, an obsessive person will do things without stopping and focus on them constantly. But an addictive person might go so far as like stealing money from things, or doing things so much that they make themselves sick. They're similar, but an addiction is worse. An obsessive person has more ability to exert control over themselves, where an addicted person has to do it and can't really concentrate or do anything else without satisfying their addiction. Okay? So that's what the topic's going to be. It's not just about chocolate. Drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, sugar, caffeine, chocolate, delicious food, games, all kinds of games, including sports, but especially, computer games and video games, electronic devices like smartphones. That might be something that you're addicted to. There's all kinds of things, foods and foods and objects, machines that when we start to be unable to control ourselves and resist doing them, and we have to do them, or it causes us, anxiety, nervousness, discomfort. You're going beyond obsessiveness and into the realm of addiction where you've lost control of yourself. Okay? So there's a whole bunch of stuff mostly about food and chocolate and other things, delicious things all over the place, and I've never been a crazy chocolate person, but you don't have to stick to chocolate by any means. It can be any substance, food, object, or activity that you can become addicted to, okay? And if you find yourself being unable to stop and ignoring your friends, or not doing your homework, or not going to your part-time job, or ignoring your family in favor of pursuing, ways to satisfy your addiction, that's a big problem. You're an alcoholic or a chocoholic, or if you keep shopping until you have no money left, and then you keep asking other people to borrow money or more money from your parents, and you never have any money because you can't stop shopping. That's an addictive behavior too. We all have addictive behaviors. When it gets out of control, that's when something has to be done. Sometimes you need some support. Sometimes you need friends. Sometimes you need to get away from it. Sometimes you need some medicine to help you. There's various things you can do. As you go through the chapter here, it's going to focus mostly on caffeine and mild things. But if you want to talk about something more serious, we always think alcohol is not that serious, but alcohol is one of the most destructive, most unhealthy drugs, despite the fact that in most countries it's readily available, and especially in Korea, you can just drinking is socially acceptable, So I think the addictions chapter is really easy to do, and it's mostly about your choice, unless you love chocolate, in which case the chapter is going to be more useful. On to the 10th chapter. This is really about how to help other people. Charity is just the action of being generous to other people, right? Generosity. There's various ways that you can do this. Excuse me. Generosity. Doing things for other people. Helping people. Doing it voluntarily. Doing it without being paid. Doing it without being asked. Being polite. Helping an old woman across the street. These are types of really, I think, the most respectable types of assistance, is helping people who are strangers and recognizing that, if you were in their position, wouldn't it be nice if somebody helped you, no matter who it was, if they just took the time just to give you a little bit of help, how much easier it would be, and how much joy and positive energy that produces, for the person. I bumped into somebody on Monday who was on crutches, a guy who was about 10 years younger than me, and he was walking down the road, so I slowed down with him because I did rupture my Achilles 15 years ago. So I asked him about his injury and how his recovery was going, and had a little chat with him, and I said, oh yeah, well, I couldn't walk for 6 months. He said he was on crutches for 2, and I said, well, do your physical therapy, you're only 32, I can run around, I play sports, just be careful on the sidewalk because there's lots of, up and down kind of bricks here and there. So take care of yourself, and have a good day. And it cheered me up just to talk to the guy, and I'm assuming it made him feel better too. It's having a broken leg in summer is awful in Korea. Walking around in the rain with one leg is awful. Being super sweaty and hot all the time when you're trying to, shuffle around on your crutches is awful too. So, generosity, it's sort of, it's a matter of, being social as well. Just, complimentary. These are all sort of basic actions you can take, and when people do them to you, that it sometimes changes your entire attitude. You might be having a horrible day, and then somebody, the other day also I left my wallet on the table, and an Ajumma ran up behind me and said, "Oh, you forgot your wallet." And I'm like, thank God. Korean Ajummas are honest, and thank God I live in Korea, because somebody easily could have stolen my wallet. But instead, this person chased me out of the restaurant and gave it to me, rather than taking all the cash out or sticking it in her pocket, which is all something I think you can appreciate. Advice. You don't have to say anything. I mean, support is support. Sometimes that just means sitting there and saying nothing. Sometimes sometimes you are an expert and you give good advice. Sometimes you have experience, or you're a professional and you counsel people. Some people are good at giving advice, and some people have a lot of experience, right? Like sharing, experiences. That's basically what happened with me and the American guy who was walking down the street. Is that I saw him hobbling on one leg, and I was like, that's what happened to me. So I didn't give him any advice except for encouraging him to, recover faster and be positive and be happy. If the doctors here are pretty good, they're treating you well, you're doing therapy, you'll be fine. And, that's sort of a picker-upper. Gives you a little bit of a boost. Now, these are the essential things that you need to be focused on for each topic. And I don't think I need to go into any more depth, other than the fact that each chapter usually has a paragraph that is more or less relevant, right? Each chapter has a paragraph mid through where you can read it over and be like, okay, this is something about a collection. All right, this is a memory that something happened to me. We're going to stay away from urban legends. The chocolate thing, again, you can deviate pretty far from that, but chocolate is everywhere, and it's really, it boils down to the sugar itself. If you just eat cacao beans, you're not gonna be as addicted or unhealthy. If you're just eating caramel and milk chocolate and sugar and Snickers bars, you're gonna be unhealthy pretty fast, right? So all sorts of different ways to help people. If you have resources, you can help people. If you have strength, if you have time, if you have knowledge, resources, strength, time, you decide. Hypothetical, but like if you have certain skills you have used or can use, then tell me about it. I don't think any of these topics are particularly difficult, so I think you should all be able to handle them. Strength, resources, skills, time. Share them and give them to other people. That's what assistance is. Help somebody else. That's why the title is Ways to Help on Chapter 10. So that's really it for now. We will probably be running out of time in class, so I might throw up a couple other short videos for you to watch just to help inspire you. Some of them might be me, and some of them might be, clips that are related to topics, just for you to, come up with ideas and get the creative juices going when you're preparing your questions for the exam. Okay, so that covers all the topics that we have, but I think there'll be a couple supplementary videos that you can watch over the next week as we finish presentations and have holidays, and maybe that will help you make your own choices for what you want to talk about in the interview with me. 3 questions, remember, 1 from the first 5 and 1 from the second 5 out of the 10 from our textbooks. And that concludes our topics for the semester. Like I said, we'll talk next class, and there may be a couple videos that go up as supplementary videos just to help you brainstorm what you're going to talk about. Thank you for listening, and see you next class.